This video will go over the critical evaluation essay, which is the final summative essay in Unit 4 in English 101. It is the final essay in all of English 101. I'm going over this assignment today in pretty intricate detail because there's a lot to it, and I want to make sure that students are understanding this is a different kind of writing than you've done up to this point. So the assignment guidelines are located in the course, and you'll be able to review the steps in the process. But what I want to really focus on is the structure and content. This includes a title page and a references page, just like APA format, everything that we've done before. It also includes an introduction. The introduction is similar to what you've done in the Unit 3 essay. It asks you to identify the text, and then identify the overall argument, explain the author's purpose and audience, and summarize the article. You are ending with a thesis statement, which is similar to what you've done before, but the thesis statement for this assignment is going to be very different from the first unit and the third unit. In those units, I was asking you to respond. I was asking you how you could relate to the topic, and what your opinion was, and whether you agreed or disagreed. For this particular paper, we are not asking your opinion. It doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree with the author. What we're asking you to do in this paper is evaluate. That's why it's called a critical evaluation. Evaluate means to judge. So your job is to judge this article and try to determine whether or not the article is effective or not. In this article, which is going to be R4, by the way, you're going to be using Reading 4, which this particular semester that I'm recording, that's the article is called Ungrading by Susan Bloom. But if you're watching this video in a different semester, you may have a different reading. The idea is that you're going to evaluate Reading 4 to determine whether or not it is effective. We're going to do that by breaking the argument down into component parts, and you're going to be evaluating the evidence and counter-evidence. You're going to be evaluating the author's language use, and you're going to be evaluating the author and the source credibility. And so it's very different because this writing is so much more structured than the response writing you've done in the past. And I'm also not asking for your opinion or your experiences at all. I'm just asking you to act like the expert and tell me whether or not the author has done a good job. So when we're looking at evidence, language use, and credibility, the English 101 course has broken those three very large general components down into much more specific questions that you need to answer. So you're not going to be on your own trying to figure out evidence and counter evidence. We have multiple steps in the process, including the planner part 1 and the planner part 2, as well as tons of sources of evidence or of information in the course itself. So this is the Unit 4 Learning Materials submodule that covers evidence, ethos, pathos, logos, fallacies, credibility, etc. I also have created a whole host of resources to help you. There will be videos posted. There is a sample essay so that you can actually look at a sample essay and see my notes and get a good sense for, like, what does the summary look like? How long should it be? What should my thesis statement include? How should I organize my paragraphs? Which section headers should I be using? So all of those questions should be answered for you with the essay sample. And I've also incorporated this. It's kind of like a cheat sheet for the essay. It's got all of the information that you need in one place. Now, this is obviously like a smaller version. It's not everything there is to know about evidence or language use, but this is like the Cliff's Notes version. It's a smaller, targeted selection of information, and it's all combined into one document. So this talks about how to evaluate evidence. You've got types of evidence, evaluating evidence, persuasive appeals, fallacies, counter evidence. So this is all the information that would be on Planner Part 1, and this is all the information that's going to go into this first section of the body of your paper. So I just want you to be aware that there are several resources available as you are filling in this content. Another thing that's worth mentioning is the length. This essay should be 4 to 6 pages total. Now that is a minimum of 4 full written pages. If you are evaluating all of the things that you should be evaluating, you won't have any trouble hitting 4 pages, and some of you may have a hard time fitting it onto 6. So make sure that you're being concise. The other thing that's really worth mentioning is the point of view for this essay. Up until this point, you've been able to use I, me, my, we, and our. That's first person point of view, and it is acceptable in both the personal essay and in the response. But for this critical evaluation assignment, you cannot use first person point of view. So you also can't use second person point of view, which is you and your, and hopefully you knew that. But you also cannot use I or me or my. That means that you can't say, I think the author is effective, or I believe, or my opinion is, or in my opinion, or in my article. So make sure that you're being really careful to only use third person point of view. And that means you can say things like he, or she, or they, or the author, or students, or teachers, or parents, or society, or people. But you just can't talk about yourself, and you can't say you or your as though you're talking to the audience. So that's what you need to know about the assignment instructions. There's one last thing that I want to make sure that I focus on, and that is reading 5. This whole critical evaluation essay is evaluating R4, which is the article I gave you. So it might be ungrading or it might be another article, but it should be clear in the assignment instructions and on the schedule which article R4 is. You're also going to be asked to find R5. If we look at that on the course schedule, whatever your course schedule might look like, it may look different from this one, but it's going to tell you that you need to brainstorm counter arguments and then locate another article to use within the critical evaluation. Now, the idea here is that you should find an article that presents a counter argument. So if your article is arguing one thing, then the article you find on your own, R5, should argue the opposite thing. Okay, so it should be an opposing argument. So what you're going to do is you're going to use that when we talk about counter evidence. There's going to be a paragraph in your report in the body under evidence evaluation, and I'll show you on the sample what that looks like. We have evidence evaluation, and we're evaluating the first piece of evidence, the second piece of evidence, the third piece of evidence, and then finally we have a whole paragraph here focused on the counter argument. This paragraph is the only place that you'll be using R5. You do not need to summarize both articles. You do not need to evaluate both articles. You're not comparing and contrasting the two articles and what they say. You're just using R5 in order to flesh out this paragraph about counter-argument and counter-evidence. What do the opponents say? What argument are they making against the original article? So that's where you'll use R5. So hopefully that's clear. And that essentially covers everything that you need to know about the critical evaluation essay. Now, obviously, there's going to be more content to come about things like worldview and bias and how to evaluate evidence. So make sure that you're using the resources in the course. Make sure that you're using the information on everything you need to know about critical evaluation document, and make sure that you're looking for additional videos that I might post about those topics. And of course, if you have any questions, you're welcome to email me.